Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Friday, January the 3rd. Starting off at the top of the board with a claim on waivers. Yes, Dakota Mermis has been claimed from Utah by Toronto. So the Toronto Maple Leafs pick up Dakota Mermis, need a little bit of depth on the blue line. And they've also extended Philippe Myers. It is a 2-year extension for Myers, a cap hit of $850,000. So good on Myers for getting some job security, and the Leafs definitely working on that depth on the blue line. And so we'll see how things go from here. But good on Myers for getting that extension. Now, the World Juniors, of course, for Team Canada came to an end yesterday. Czechia beat them. It was a back and forth game. It was very close. Czechia and Canada have a rivalry that's been going on for a while now. I don't think it's embarrassing to lose to Czechia, but in this country, anything less than a gold medal means you got to go through it with like forensics. Well, the general manager of Team Canada, who I think we can say that the proof show, or at the very least, the results show that maybe some other decisions could have been made about who was on the team and how everything was run, says he wouldn't make any changes to the team. And then there's been questions too about apparently they weren't practicing like other countries were, and what was being cited by the coach was the team was exhausted. And when a reporter points out to the general manager, hey, you guys had the biggest dressing room and you guys had some of the best amenities and you were staying right there, why weren't you guys practicing? How could you be exhausted, kind of thing? And the GM saying, that's not how things work. So at any rate, Team Canada, it's another year of disappointment for Team Canada, which happens. But I still am of the mind that there are a lot of good countries when it comes to playing hockey, and if you don't bring your absolute A game, you're not going to win the game. So I never go into tournaments like this expecting Canada to win. And I also look at it from another point of view too. I'm more interested in how some of the young players are playing than I am necessarily in the results. Because especially for the upcoming draft and then previous drafts, and how are these guys doing, and so that's kind of how I look at it. But yeah, Team Canada was not up to snuff, and so we'll see if they make any changes for next year, including we'll see if it's a different general manager making those decisions. Dougie Hamilton's been fined for embellishment, so it's a slap on the wrist for Dougie Hamilton, and yeah, that's about it. Dougie Hamilton is a good player. Apparently, he was warned for embellishment once. You get warned the once, and then the second time it's a fine, and it's a publicly released fine. So it's supposed to embarrass the player into not diving in the future. So we'll see if that's the case with Dougie Hamilton. So the Winter Classic, I did the video yesterday on that, and it turns out that I was right. Like I was thinking to myself, like, okay, do I wait till the ratings come out? And I thought, well, the ratings times are delayed, so I'll just do the video. And this was my thought yesterday of doing that day. But yeah, 920,000 watched this Winter Classic. It's just that's the reality of the fact that it is not the spectacle that it was. It wasn't teams people were excited about. I did see some ideas from people in the comments for that video that I think are very good ideas that the NHL could use. So I assume that they won't get used. And the Winter Classic is just, it's fading. It really is. The allure of the outdoor games has faded dramatically. And now they're saying that Tampa and Florida are going to get outdoor games. And I assume they're against each other. But the way it's being phrased, it sounds like Florida could have multiple outdoor games, just the way it's being phrased. And I don't know that that's going to draw the casual viewer either. I know that both of those teams have had a lot of success, but they still aren't necessarily big draws. Like, for instance, if you had Toronto and the New York Rangers playing in New York, something, or playing in Toronto, something like that, I think would generate probably more views. But there's a lot that goes into it. And at any rate, yeah, so 920,000 watching the Winter Classic. I've seen people say, well, you can't have it on the same day as the college football games because the ad rates are going to drop. You think the ad rates are going to be high when you see those numbers? I'm going to guess that they're not going to be. So at any rate, there you go. The Vancouver Canucks, Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson are traveling with the team. They keep saying they're getting closer to returning. Well, of course they are. They're not getting further away from returning. One of the weirdest things, and I've noticed this a lot this year, is, well, they're getting closer. Of course they are. If they're not getting closer, it means they're retired or they're never coming back. So, like, of course they're getting closer, but at least they're traveling with the team, so that's a good sign. Demko left the game last night, according to the team, with back spasms. So they've called up Shilovs, and I don't necessarily feel better that it's back spasms, because in the back of my mind I'm like, okay, good, so that's something else. So we already knew about the knee thing that might be with him for good. Now he's having back spasms. It's not actually a good thing, in my opinion, anyways. I don't know that there would have been any good news to this, but with back spasms, you don't know how long those are going to go on for, and it can go on for a while. So, at any rate, we'll see how long Demko's going to be out for the Canucks, but it could be for a bit. Spurgeon, lower body injury for the Minnesota Wild, is week to week. So, minimum of 2 weeks. It was 3 games that Zach LaRue got in the suspension yesterday. It's not on the board, but you guys probably have already heard it's a 3-game suspension for LaRue. And if you haven't, well, I'm telling you now. So LaRue won't be playing in the game tonight against Vancouver, and he won't be playing tomorrow against Calgary. So that's 2 of the 3 games right there. And we won't be seeing Spurgeon back for, it looks like, at least a couple of weeks. And that's bad news for a Minnesota team that's already dealing with a lot of injury problems, right? So Spurgeon being out does not help. Sidney Crosby. So Sidney Crosby currently sits 5 points back of Joe Sakic for 9th on the all-time points list. He is within striking distance of Lemieux for the all-time points record for a Penguin, but he has not got there yet. Lemieux, I think it was 1,723 points Lemieux had in his career, something around there, anyways. But yeah, Crosby 5 points back at Sakic. That's an impressive name to be passing, and getting up to 9th on the all-time scoring list. Crosby is one of the greatest of all time, and we can have that discussion of whether or not he's the greatest of all time at some other point. The World Junior semifinals are tomorrow. Finland will play Sweden, which is fantastic news for hockey. Finland and Sweden is always a great matchup, and then the Czechs will play the USA. I don't know that anybody's going to stop the USA, to be honest. This team has been a machine from the beginning. One thing that I've always thought that is part of why Canada might struggle at these, Canada's under a lot more pressure than other countries. If you look at the USA, and if you walk up to the average person and ask, hey, are you watching the World Juniors? They're going to say, what? You walk up to a random Canadian watching the World Juniors, you're either going to hear yes, or, well, I'm not, but my brother is, or my husband is, or, I can't get enough. My kids are on about that. It is just a completely different setup. And so, semifinals tomorrow, I'll be rooting for the Czechs. I'll be rooting for between Finland and Sweden. I don't know. But at any rate, those are your final 4. 3 of them are going to get medals. 1 of them won't. And we'll find out soon enough which ones are going to win which medals. Coach Bednar saying that Scott Wedgewood is likely to be week to week. It was a freak injury last night. Parker Kelly pushing one of the offending players from the Buffalo Sabres onto his own goaltender. And then the question being asked by Bednar as well is, why wasn't the whistle blown on that play? It's at a referee's discretion, which I think is the problem. But in the event of an injury, you normally don't blow the whistle until your team has the puck. So if the Avs had picked up the puck behind the net, the whistle would have blown, and they could have checked on Wedgewood. So that's basically, it is one of those things where if it's a severe injury, they can blow the whistle right away. A good example is anytime somebody gets hit up high with a puck now, which I always kind of refer to now as kind of the Matt Calvert rule. Matt Calvert takes a puck up high, the Vancouver Canucks score. I think it was against Columbus, and then Calvert was with Columbus. There was a lot of uproar after that about how the whistle didn't go, and it should have, because Calvert was in some real distress. And since then, the NHL's been very quick with the whistles, but in this situation, they weren't. So, because a puck didn't hit Wedgewood. If a puck had hit Wedgewood, say, if it had knocked his mask off, then immediately it's a whistle, but since it was his leg, it's not. The NHL has some gray areas. It's like, to me, how it's a 4-minute high stick if you cut somebody's lip. But if you could break somebody's jaw with the stick, but if you don't draw blood, they may not call 4 minutes, they may call 2. It's so weird. I don't think blood should decide what is or isn't an injury, but I've talked about that before. There was a minor trade in the National Hockey League this morning. And I do mean minor, as in these are two minor leaguers, very unlikely to see time at the NHL level. Colton Pullman, a defenseman, goes to Pittsburgh. Bennett MacArthur goes to the Buffalo Sabres in the deal. Bennett MacArthur is a forward who's been playing at the ECHL level, 28 games, 3 goals, 4 assists this season. He's 23 years of age. Colton Pullman at the AHL level this year, 5 games, just the 1 assist. He is 29 years old. Neither of these players have played a game at the National Hockey League level. So this is purely an AHL/ECHL level trade. And it's just depth on defense, depth up front. It makes sense for those organizations to make that move. And most hockey fans will say, who, for what, to where, why, where, who, what. But there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support, as always. I will talk to you again soon.